In part one of the 2020 TurboSmart Ultimate Street Car, we looked over the event rules and judging criteria and checked out our two-wheel drive competitors. Now, in part two, we look at the four-wheel drive competitors. All monsters with over 1,150 horsepower. Let's go. The first of our GTRs is George's from Precision Racing. Built motor and box, PR12 turbo kit, TurboSmart external wastegates and Raceport blower valves, Motec ECU and a proven 8.4 second performer at the track with 1,300 horsepower. Some subtle body mods and the usual R35 mod cons. Although George's is the most stock appearing R35 in the group, it's a pretty good street car to begin with. It can blend into the corporate world, take the family out on weekends, and still hand out the chop, Koval, at roll racing and our events. All right, we're in George's R35. Whenever I drive a car from Precision, I generally already know what to expect, and that is a car that drives probably very close to standard, but also has an extreme amount of power as well. So, how much power are you on them today?
1,300.
Is that all?
That's it. That's it. Drive on 1,300, and my foot's the control.
And this is the best thing about R35s, is that you can just drive them normal. We can have aircon on if we want.
Yeah.
And they can have huge amounts of power. And about the only thing that would be detrimental to a car like this at this power is probably just what tyre you've got on, right?
He's done an 8.4, it's the best time.
Exactly right. What does 8.4 and drives like this? What I see now with a little bit more throttle and a bit more revs, even at part throttle, the acceleration is unreal.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, I just came back from driving George's R35 GTR from Precision Racing, and I will admit I was actually taken a little bit by surprise with that car. I've driven a lot of big powered R35s and they're generally pretty smooth, but that thing on the 1,300 horsepower, down low you think, oh yeah, typical 1,000 horsepower R35. It's probably slightly lazier than I expected, but man, when it came on, it's a monster. Drivability wise, you could drive it around all day. It's an R35, but you do need to take into consideration with that car that you got to keep the revs up a little bit higher than you would an R35, but that just comes down to the gearbox required and obviously the size of the turbos. If you tell yourself to drive it sort of from 2.5 to 4.5, that's the normal range rather than sort of 1,500 up to 3. It becomes a much better car to drive. So there are some considerations with that car to get it to kind of drive the way you would. So overall though, man, R35s, when you want to make big grunts, very hard to beat them. George's car ran a 9.0 at 156 miles per hour before it had some four-wheel drive issues. R35s are pretty violent when in rear-wheel drive. Next was a new build from Precision Racing, Harney's 2019 R35 GTR. He bought it new and less than a year later, it was dropped off at Precision Racing to get a PR12 kit. It went in stock and came out with 1,260 horsepower. Built motor and box, PR12 Garrett turbo kit with TurboSmart external wastegates and Raceport blower valves, and an AMS carbon intake manifold sits on top of a show-stopping engine bay. Something very hard to do in an R35. The car doesn't just run their Motec ECU, but an entire replacement dash, which is simply epic and better than factory. Inside the billet specialties drag wheels are AMS carbon ceramic brakes. Well, back in another R35. I think now I've probably driven more R35s then most people have probably driven different cars, to be brutally honest. And a lot of people always say to me, what do you think of them? And I go, mate, when they're done right, they are hard to fault. Where else can you make 1,000 plus and have a car that drives almost as good as factory?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you can see driving now, other than the drag radial creating some wonder, who would pick this over a standard car? So I think I'm up to my 5th or 6th R35 GTR that makes over 1,000 horsepower now, and that is certainly one of the best ones when it comes to smoothness for daily driving down low. Now that one's got the late model interior and exterior, so it obviously looks good, it's comfortable inside, but what really impressed me the most then was just how good it was to drive down low. Some setups with the turbo sizing they've got, etc., are just a little bit lazy and then aggressive when they come on, but this one is kind of chalk and cheese to George's. George's was super aggressive and wild and massive smile on your face, while this one is smoother, more linear, probably easier to control, but definitely no less amount of G-force pushing you into your seat. That is a perfect example of why the average person can go and build a 1,000 horsepower R35 GTR and enjoy it. It was Harney's first time driving the car in anger, but by the end of the event, he was running consistent low nines with a best of 9.151 at a stonking 163 miles per hour. Harney's R35 is a perfect example of what TurboSmart Ultimate Street Car is all about. Luxury, all the modern mod cons, drivable and comfortable, but 163 miles per hour, 1,260 horsepower monster when the foot goes flat. Now into the top 3 cars, which was all very close. In third place was Anthony Sard's War GTR from the CID stable. Well known for its street driving exploits in plenty of videos on the internet, Anthony uses the car to its full potential, cruising the streets, heading to events, and running mid-8s at the track before driving home. It has a CID-built Nitto 3.2-litre stroker with CID race-ported head, Precision 8685 turbocharger, Hypertune inlet, Motec ECU, and can make up to 1,500 horsepower transferred via the Samsonite 6-speed sequential transmission. It scored well in presentation and engineering, but being such a monster, how would it go in the drivability test? Alright, so I'm back in Anthony Sard's car. New combo, new setup, been getting developed. It's been a while since I've driven it, like probably 18 months, 2 years. So it went RD, it's got more grunt. It's been mid-8s, low 8s really, if you want to call under 8.5 a low 8. And it's still a monster and everyone's favourite R34 GTR, right? It wasn't my first time driving War GTR, but Mike, the other cars that I have driven before, he has done a lot more development since the last time I drove it. He went to RD block, bigger turbo, he's turned it up. I don't even know what it was on then, but it was probably 1,400 horsepower. It's made over 1,500 as well. It's a monster. And
I have to kind of take the personal side and the emotional side out of judging this car, because when you look at it as a daily driver and just look at how smooth and nice it is to drive, that will never compare to an R35 or a Lambo, etc. But where the R34 wins is, it's just a bad mother. When you drive that car, you are the baddest mother on the road, and no one's going near you. It's lumpy, it's loud, it's aggressive, it's brutal, and just giving it a hit is, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, the R35s enable you to go fast, really enjoy it, have a big smile on your face. I'm not smiling when I'm giving that a hit, I'm manhandling it. I can't even explain just the pure, raw driving experience that a sequential powered 32, 33 or 34 has with that sort of grunt. You can't not love that. But here's the thing, could you give that car to someone else who's never driven anything with over 1,000 horsepower and let them drive it? And the answer is no. You would not give that car to someone that has not driven that sort of car before, that you can trust, because they will kill themselves. At least a Lamborghini or R35, you can turn it down a little bit to sort of 1,000, and, someone with a 500 horsepower GTR, normal one, could probably, drive that fine. But, man, you do not give that to a rookie.
When it came to quarter mile times, Anthony was the second quickest outright, but quickest averaged over 2 runs amongst the TurboSmart Ultimate Street Car competitors, with a best of 8.771 and an average of 8.77, and he was second in speed by less than 1 mile per hour, but still got the full 20 points. In second place outright and the top GTR in the TurboSmart Ultimate Street Car was Chris Skinner's R35 from the Precision Racing Camp. It was only 3 points out of 100 separating him from first place for a very close finish. Chris's car is one of the best presented and all-round performing R35s in Australia, with the trophy cabinet to prove it. The body kit is one of the best we've seen, and along with the custom interior, elevates the R35 to a real head-turning supercar. His setup has evolved from 1,000 horsepower when we first saw it to over 1,400 horsepower now. It sees street duties regularly, has done circuit track days, power cruises, and taken out Sydney roll racing 4 times. Under the hood is a Magnus Motorsport 4.1 litre stroker with AMS Alpha 16 Garrett turbos, AMS carbon intake, Motec ECU, and he also has the Motec dash replacing the factory one. It makes upwards of 1,400 horsepower with a Chevtrans uprated transmission. We've driven this car before on 1,000 horsepower, so we're keen to see what it's like now. Well, this is the R35 GTR that I'm probably the most familiar with of any in the country, Chris Skinner's. Now, if anyone wanted to doubt how much this car gets driven on the street, I'd know, because I've seen it, been in it, I've watched it turn up to many, many things. I can certainly vouch that it's one of the most driven high-powered R35s, I reckon, in the world. It's done a lot of kilometres. Now, like most R35s, the drag radial certainly changes how they feel. This car feels very different to last time. The low down now is...
Yeah, very different.
It's not like a 35 anymore, is it?
Not.
It's actually...
A lot of
wait.
Yeah.
Well, it's quite interesting driving an R35 that I've actually driven before. So Chris Skinner's car, I drove it when it had about 950 horsepower. very responsive, heaps of power down low, and didn't really change much from a traditional R35, but still had the grunt. But now it's just next level. 4.1 litre, makes more like 1450, 1500 horsepower. They've turned the torque down a little bit here at Cootamundra, but it drives sort of very different to the other R35s I've driven today. It's hard to explain exactly how different, but one of them, George's, was super aggressive. The other one was super smooth. Chris's is kind of in the middle where it's still pretty smooth to drive normally, but man, it's just that fast. It throws you in your seat, but it's actually still accessible. So it's just strange how different characters these R35s have when they're all on that sort of 12 to 1400 horsepower mark. Chris's car's an amazing car though. The exterior, the interior, it's just an excellent looking car, comfortable inside. He's done so much development with that car to make it what it is that it's just, how do you even fault that? You could drive that around. I know he does. You could drive it around, but man, when you give it a hit, it's wild. But it's still controllable in that car. I didn't feel unsafe giving it a big hit. It was awesome.
Chris's car was an animal on the strip, doing almost 20 passes all up, of which 8 were 8-second passes, including in the heads-up racing in the drag battle shootout. His best time was 8.78 and his average of the best 2 runs were also 8.78. His best speed was 168 and his average was also 168. Talk about consistency. The winner of this year's TurboSmart Ultimate Street Car was the car that came with the sole purpose of doing so. Aaron McGranahan from Precision Racing's Lamborghini Huracan Performante. They have been working on their Stage 1 and Stage 2 twin turbo kit for Huracan and Audi R8 for a year now, but this was the car's first real competitive outing. In Stage 2 form, the 5.2 litre V10 has been upgraded with JE Forged pistons, Carrillo rods, trend pins, upgraded head gaskets and studs, and PR's own cylinder heads and other modifications. It uses twin Garrett GDX 3582 Gen 2 turbochargers with TurboSmart external wastegates and blow-off valves and twin water-to-air intercoolers with PWR heat exchangers. The factory dual-clutch transmission remains, but with upgraded billet clutch cages, ensuring factory drivability even with upwards of 1400 horsepower. Being a Performante version of the Huracan, it already has the active aero package, improved suspension and brake package, bucket seats, and carbon throughout the interior and exterior. You don't really need to do anything to it. It's already the ultimate head turner and scores a perfect 20 out of 20 for the engineering judging. The ultimate test of this competition for this car is would it get the drivability score of 20 out of 20 as well. Now, usually when someone lets you drive a Lamborghini Huracan Performante, they usually say, I've never driven one. I'm lucky, I have driven one of these before, but it was standard. And standard, they are epic mid-10 second car that does sick lap times. And it's just something I want to own all day. Now, Aaron's put 2 turbos on it and made what, 12, 13, 1400?
Yeah, look, we've gone over 1400, but we've turned it down just for that.
So what am I on right now? 900, 1000?
We've got you on about 1150, 1200 actually. But for the sake of racing, we're going to turn it down a little bit just so that so people know what they can buy.
So we're in Corsa mode, which is the most aggressive shift, and it still shifts better than most of the 35s I've driven.
Oh yeah, definitely. And obviously, it's based on throttle position, so the less throttle you have, the softer, the smoother it's going to be. It'll auto shift. It'll auto.
say about a twin-turbo Lambo other than it's just a dream to drive one. If you're into cars, no matter how much you try and talk down supercars against your 90s Jap car, if you don't want or dream of driving one of these, then you shouldn't be a car enthusiast, and it does live up to the hype. Now, I've actually driven a Lamborghini Huracan Performante before around a racetrack. I know what they drive like, and if you didn't know that car was twin-turbo and you didn't know that it had drag radius on it, you wouldn't even know it was modified, right? Like, the drag radius is the only thing that makes that not drive like a standard car. At part throttle, you can drive it with part power. Some cars are either, not much or all in, that sort of middle ground of power where you don't want to go ballistic, you just want to accelerate briskly, is very difficult. But that car, throttle versus power, very proportional. But mate, when you give it full beans for the first time, it's something else. I've driven multiple cars with 1100 horsepower. I've driven an R35 on 1500 horsepower, but that is still some of the best acceleration I've ever done in a car. Probably the weight of the car has a lot to do with it, but man, the power delivery, the actual power itself, and then the actual smoothness of the car, you'd think it would be a little bit more sedate, but it's not. It's mental. Like, you know what? Show the onboard.
When it came time to show how well it could use its power, the Lambo didn't disappoint. With a best time of 8.769 and an average of the best two runs being 8.917 and best mile per hour of 170 and average of 169, the Lambo had the quickest time and fastest mile per hour in the competition, but the average time was 0.03 of a second off the number one spot. The competition was that tight.
Well, the guys from Precision Racing came to Cootamundra with one goal in mind that probably most other workshops didn't have as their first priority, but they know how important this is. The Turbo Smart Ultimate Street Car winner. You guys have taken it out with the Lambo. Guys, well done.
Thank you, thank you.
Come on, mate, you're going to be way more excited than that.
I'm excited what I say. The car speaks for itself.
When you hold a check, you're going to feel a little bit more excited. Aaron, well done, mate. The Lambo has been exceptional. For those who have been sort of following the car online, really this is its first ever full pass, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, up until yesterday, we hadn't even set up launch control. We haven't had access to any tracks. Everything's been shut due to COVID. So we kind of come here for testing, not necessarily be competitive. I'm just rapt that it was competitive, we weren't expecting it, and that's the best when you come with no expectations. But we've done really well. Skinner done well as well, so with the GDR win, and we got the all-wheel drive win as well, so awesome. Yeah.
I'll tell you this though, in Ultimate Street Car, I think there was 3 points out of 100 separating the two cars, and I'll be honest with you, what actually pipped it, you had equal points in mile an hour and ET. I think between all of the engineering and presentation awards, it was like 1 point either way, and it was actually drivability at the end by a couple of points that you guys got the win. I think you probably would have presumed that, right?
Yeah, well, obviously drivability, the Lambo versus the GDR is a massive difference. And I mean, in my opinion, the engineering's way above it as well, which is why you get that reflection. But yeah, perfect. But both awesome cars, two different cars.